My wedding's coming up, but my dad's acting like he's heard nothing about it, despite the invite. I sent it 6 weeks ago. Hand-delivered it, actually. Drove 40 minutes to his house on a Saturday morning, flowers on the porch, dog barking inside, the whole suburban picture. His wife Renee answered the door in a silk robe like she'd been expecting a package, not a person. I handed her the envelope and smiled and said, "Can you make sure Dad gets this?" She looked down at it, looked back up at me, and gave me this slow smile like she'd already won something I didn't know we were competing for. She said, "Of course, sweetie. I'll put it right on the counter." That was my first mistake, trusting her with anything. 3 weeks went by, nothing. No call, no congratulations, not even a thumbs up on the follow-up text I sent with the date and venue written out in plain language. I figured maybe he was busy. My dad works a lot, travels sometimes, always has some reason for being hard to reach. I gave him the benefit of the doubt because that's what I've always done with him. That's what daughters do when they love their dads more than their dads deserve. Week 4, I called him, asked if he'd gotten the invite. He said, "What invite?" Not in a confused way. In a flat, almost bored way. Like I'd asked him about a subscription box he never signed up for. I said, "Dad, my wedding invite. I dropped it off at your house." Renee took it at the door. Another pause. Then, she must have forgot to give it to me. I let that sit for a second because I needed a second. Then I said, "Okay, no problem." And I gave him all the details again right there on the phone. Date, venue, ceremony time, everything. He said he'd write it down. He said he was happy for me. He asked if I needed anything. It felt almost normal. Then my aunt called me 4 days later. She'd run into Renee at the grocery store. They're not close, but they're polite, the way people are in small towns where everyone knows everyone and nobody says what they actually think. My aunt mentioned she was excited about the wedding, and Renee said without lynching, "Oh yes, the spring wedding. I heard about that a while back. Weeks before I ever called to tell him. She knew. She'd known the whole time. She just made sure my dad didn't. I called my dad that night and told him what my aunt told me. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't even accusatory. I just laid it out fact by fact the way you do when you want someone to meet you halfway and tell you you're wrong. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted him to have some explanation that made sense. Instead, he said, "She probably just mentioned it in passing and I forgot." I said, "Dad, I'm your only daughter. I'm getting married in 3 weeks." He said, I know, I'll be there." I said, "Do you want to know anything about it? The venue, the ceremony, what I'm wearing?" He said he was sure it was going to be beautiful. He didn't ask a single question. Not one. Not where the reception was, not what time to show up, not whether I needed him to do anything. Nothing. Just that hollow radio voice reassurance that I've been getting from him my whole life whenever he wants the conversation to end without technically having to leave it. I spent the next week hoping he'd follow up. I kept my phone close. I checked it more than I want to admit. There's something humiliating about waiting for your own father to show basic interest in the biggest day of your life and doing it anyway because you haven't fully given up on him yet. He didn't call. On day 8, Renee texted me from his phone. His phone. Not even a call, not even his own hands typing it. She wrote that unfortunately the date didn't work out for them and they were sorry to miss it, but wished me and my fiancé all the best. The date didn't work for them. I stared at that text for a long time. Then I screenshotted it, put my phone face down, and went and sat on the bathroom floor for a few minutes because sometimes that's just what you do. When I came back out, my fiancé was standing in the kitchen making coffee and he looked at my face and didn't say anything, just handed me a mug and stood next to me. That's the man I'm marrying. That's what it looks like when someone actually shows up. I called my uncle that night, my dad's older brother, who taught me to ride a bike and sat in the front row at every school play and drove 3 hours when I graduated college just to take me to dinner. I asked him if he'd walk me down the aisle. He didn't let me finish the sentence. He said yes halfway through the question, and then his voice got a little thick and he said he'd be honored, and I had to hold the phone away from my face for a second so he wouldn't hear me cry. The wedding is in 3 weeks. My dress is hanging in the spare room, the flowers are ordered, the playlist is set. My mom is flying in Thursday and my uncle already bought new shoes. My dad never did ask what I was wearing.